Are you judging me, James?
I am 100% judging you, and thank you once again for starting this off right. Welcome to BeerThralls presents Beer Protocol. I'm James. I am drinking a really odd combination of rum and zero sugar Dr. Pepper and cream soda.
That actually sounds really good.
I'm gonna try. Hold on.
What?
It's not bad. It's
Matt,
like
what are we
cream,
drinking?
The cream soda kind of hides it.
We are drinking Bold Rock Hard Cider IPA edition.
I love
Oh.
IPAs. No, I don't.
No, this is news to me.
Hate fucking IPAs. All right, gentlemen, cheers. Ding.
Clinky
Cheers.
clink.
Jake is going to basically be running this nonsense. I'm going to take a nap.
Oh, is that what you think this podcast is?
Yep,
I
I'm
didn't know
just
we're
recording
playing
this shit.
Gloomhaven.
So, today we're going to talk about a list we've built. Last time, in the last couple of weeks, we've been talking about the Captain America Sam Wilson box, which includes him and War Machine. And we're like, let's make a list. Let's go wide. Let's build that wide Captain America alternative Avengers list that we were thinking would be really neat to see run.
Then we're going to try to do it under 30 minutes.
Don't put restraints on me.
Oh yeah.
So we went ahead and made that list. However, as always with our list, full disclaimer, our competitive nature is strong, but we haven't actually had much time or opportunity to play test these things yet. So what we're going to talk about is ideas around a common list. We're going to talk about why we think certain pieces will work well together. And we're going to talk about how funny it is to bring 7 models to a 20 threat scenario.
Oh god.
So, I noticed that when building the all-new, all-different Avengers, we had a lot of Defenders in the list as well. So the first man on the list is not an Avenger, it's Doctor Strange. That way, if you feel so inclined, you could take this list and pivot to Defenders and use Doctor Strange's admittedly excellent affiliation leadership role to switch the types of your attacks and throw Hex out like candy to hinder your opponents. We'll talk a little bit more about it later, but in general, we have enough inexpensive models that I think you can play at any point level really competitively with just the Sam Wilson Avengers. But I think Doctor Strange would be a good pivot if you see your opponent has lots of models with odd defenses.
Spider foes.
Spider foes have like 3/2/3s, or if you see something like Venom, where you can just bully him off the table.
Spider foes.
Beast randomly has a 2 energy defense. Wolverine has a 2 psychic defense. If you see your
Carnage,
opponent,
Mysterio.
Carnage, Mysterio. If you see your opponent has lots of weak defenses, Doctor Strange will let you pinpoint those and go after them. That's pretty much about all I'm going to say about Strange so far. Because Defenders is potentially a good swing to keep your opponent guessing what your plan is. So this list, we are specifically wanting to build wide with this roster, so we need lots of relatively cheap and inexpensive or low threat models. There are no 4 threat models on this roster. They're all 3s, 2s, and 5s. 5s is if you're feeling especially spicy. So Captain America, Sam Wilson, brings his airlift for mobility. The list is full of models which are size 2, which means all of them are applicable with Sam's airlift, so he can give them a little extra positioning. Sam gives you a little extra mobility for most of your list when you're buddied up. He gives you solid ranged presence with his range 4 shield throw, along with his charge to move and throw shields all day long, and he has a decent energy income on his own. Best of all, his leadership ability, all new, all different, gives you lots of passive bonuses for just playing the game the way you normally would. When any of your models is dazed or KO'd, one of your other models can heal or recover SAS condition and move short. Lots of extra movement. So that already, going into the rest of this roster, I was thinking mobility might be one of the key strengths of this roster. Also, you just have so many dudes. So already I'm thinking you probably want to avoid mosh pits and see if you can spread the game out and force the game to be taking place over multiple small engagements where your numbers will overwhelm or your high mobility will allow you to reposition quickly. So keeping that in mind going forward. Every list is still eventually going to need some kind of heavy hitter, and we brought Scarlet Witch. Scarlet Witch hits like a truck with mystical attacks. She has lots of status conditions. She has a throw, and in general, she can hold the fort pretty well. She also comes with some interesting tactic card options, and she's an Avenger and a Defender.
Nice.
So you can take her and Doctor Strange if you want to go super heavy. You could take 10 points into 2 models, 10 threat into 2 models, but those models are both incredibly capable. Deadpool is a good mixed range combatant in general, both with his bang, bang, bang and an unknown number of attacks, but also he has a 5 damage melee close range attack. So he's good at basically all ranges. And his other healing abilities make him surprisingly tough and hard to take down. He's a good general purpose offensive piece. Where he's particularly going to shine, and where I would make sure to bring him, is when I see that my opponent is bringing mystical attackers, because Deadpool has 4 mystical defense on top of his regeneration and other abilities. And also, Deadpool cannot be moved or placed with mystical attacks or superpowers.
So Enchantress.
Or maybe it's only just mystical attacks. But a lot of mystical characters with mystical attacks, I'm thinking Enchantress, Loki, and a few other things, their control is shut down by Deadpool. So that gives you a potentially neat counter if you see your opponent bringing those types of lists. Hawkeye is somewhat of a generic ranged presence, but he's good at what he does. He is a turret. Park him up someplace high, rain down arrows, spend his entire activation doing nothing but poking holes in your opponent and giving them nasty status conditions.
Mm-hmm.
Iron Fist. So one of the things I wanted to do with this roster is, since Sam's affiliation is all new, all different, let's kind of check out how insane the Avengers roster is right now. It has so many characters. We're up to 22 models in the Avengers affiliation, including a lot of newer releases, which may not have factored into some of the lists we talked about in the past. So Iron Fist is going to fall in there. He's a newer model. On his own, he's honestly not super remarkable. He gets an extra energy generation per turn, which helps with paying for tactics cards and for interacting with things. He's an okay physical attacker, but if your opponent doesn't pay a lot of attention to him, you might be able to surprise them with his massive spender attack, the Iron Fist. Costs 8 power, but it's 9 dice, and if it tags someone who hasn't activated yet, you will do your opponent a favor and activate that model for them.
Oh, gods. I forgot about that.
If they have activated, then they get the stagger special condition, so that their next activation will have 1 less action, and they are thrown short away from Iron Fist. Also, he deals splash damage to all enemy characters within 3 of the target, which is one of the biggest AoE splash effects in the game. Iron Fist is kind of my backseat bunker buster. If there's a clustered up position, or it's like a criminal syndicate is stacking up on a single secure objective, and Iron Fist has managed to sneak his way to 8 power, he's going to come in there and just slap Kingpin right in the face with the Iron Fist.
Yeah.
Ideally, based on positioning, I can also throw Kingpin into someone else and kind of punish my opponent for clustering. However, Iron Fist is something that may only happen once, maybe twice in any given game. Thankfully, Iron Fist does have a solid defense. While an enemy is within 3, he gets to add blanks on his rolls to his physical or energy defenses as a passive ability, which makes him particularly strong against people relying on Pierce and other similar dice modification effects.
So let's talk about Luke Cage, and then I'm going to ask you a question.
All right, Luke Cage is probably one of the stand-ins of this list that I would take on almost all iterations of this roster, because you need someone who can hold aggro and tank up a bit, and that's Luke Cage. That's his entire playstyle. He is a short-range physical damage combatant who can do a sort of reverse bodyguard. It's not called bodyguard, but it's essentially bodyguard. He also has permanent damage reduction down to a minimum of 1 as a passive. He doesn't have to pay for it. And he has an attack named Sweet Christmas. He also has a cost 2 throw, giving you some flexibility of moving terrain effects around.
So you have Deadpool, Iron Fist, and Luke Cage. Is this something you're going to bring all 3 in the list, or is this something where you're going to take one of the 3 and kind of just slot it in because you need to have some type of melee character in it?
No, like Iron Fist and Deadpool are both somewhat situational. Deadpool is a solid mixed range character if I can't tell if my opponent's going to go long or short range, as well as a counter against psychic or mystic characters. Iron Fist is probably something I'll bring against Criminal Syndicate and how much they like to bunch up, or just any scenario where there's going to be a lot of bunching up. Because Iron Fist, if he can get all the way up to the Iron Fist, is a great job of opening up points. But also, in certain threat levels, I'm taking 5 or 6 models. So situational models are less situational when I have spots.
That is true. That is true.
Like so far of what we've talked about, the models I would take with me in almost every list, I've got about 9 threat kind of sketched out in my head of Sam, because you gotta. Luke Cage, because you always need someone who can take a hit. And he has a throw, so you can interact with terrain. And Hawkeye, because Hawkeye is just consistent damage output and consistent performance at long range. Like Hawkeye is kind of generic, but he's just good at what he's doing. If my opponent has a ton of mobility, or I think can like dance outside of Hawkeye's effective range somehow, maybe not. I'm not sure. Hawkeye is never going to be the giant bruiser that knocks people down, but he's got 5 dice of attack. He can choose his type, so he's extremely flexible. It's just a solid piece.
All right, so why Quicksilver?
Okay. Quicksilver. Oh, yeah. Also take Quicksilver almost every time. Because Quicksilver's hilarious. We should do a whole episode of Quicksilver. Quicksilver is my objective runner.
No, really?
Shockingly, even the tactics cards involving Quicksilver are just like screaming, use him to get objectives. Because he's a long movement, shocking. Both of his attacks move him more if you get the right effects or triggers. Quicksilver's Spender is only 2 power and comes with a free medium move.
Yeah.
So for the exact same cost as hit and run, you can hit someone with 6 dice at range 3 and then move medium.
That sounds like a terrible thing to do. You should never do
also,
that.
If you have 2 targets, Quicksilver could go into an infinite loop if you have the luck of a Cursed Devil. It's hilarious. But more importantly, Quicksilver has Speedster for 2 power, which lets him, if he's not holding an objective token, he gets to advance long.
Yeah.
On top of his already long movement.
Yeah. Quicksilver's insane. We definitely need to have an entire episode just on Quicksilver.
Also, just to make sure nothing gets by him, Quicksilver has Wallcrawler.
Yep. Kind of.
Which makes him weirdly vulnerable to Kraven. But that's such a specific thing. I don't know if you even bother planning for it.
I will.
I will.
Yeah.
James, come at me with that generic old man and his physical attacks. I will clobber the shit out of him.
I know. So Quicksilver's your objective runner.
Quicksilver.
You have Ant and Wasp.
So I'm still not certain which one I want. This is the perennial debate of which Transformer do you take. I'm kind of leaning towards Wasp on this one. Ant-Man has the incredibly disgusting 6 dice builder at range 1 when he's tiny, and he has all kinds of his extra free movement for 0 cost when he's tiny. Wasp is somewhat of a more consistent performer at range, and she has a throw. Again, I think that one's going to be down to playtesting.
I think you're going to end up taking Wasp because you're going to want the extra throw. I know it's not a huge throw, but it's something that's there that you're going to have.
Well, Wasp also has consistent 5 or 6 dice attacks at range 2 or 3, even when tiny. So Wasp is not going to do spike damage as well as Ant-Man, but she's going to do consistent damage of multiple types.
Oh, I don't think you're in this entire list. Even your 20.7 wide list. I don't think you're going to have a spiker. You're not going to have somebody who's going to be throwing out 20-some dice other than Iron Fist every once in a while.
You can take Domino for 3. That's her entire job.
We'll
talk about Domino in a separate episode.
I would put Domino instead of an Ant-Man Wasp, actually.
That's fair. I was trying to stick within Avengers. There's actually not that much incentive to stay within Avengers. This was more of a thematic roster for today. But you could definitely pull in people like Domino, to try to spike damage and burn someone down. Or God, just so many. There's so many good 3-cost characters. Like I'm sure
Yeah.
somebody's going to be after me for not bringing Valkyrie because she is like the
Yeah.
perennial queen of 3-threat characters. And it's like,
Yeah.
Valkyrie good, but so are these people. And
I
also,
mean,
I haven't played with most of these people.
you have a
Is Val?
defenders Avengers list like right here, and
Yeah, we went
it's
over that
pretty
at the
solid.
beginning of the episode.
No, you have Black Widow at 2 points because you need Black Widow.
Yep.
Why not Toad?
He's not an Avenger.
Well,
Maybe
so
ran out of room.
well, yeah. he
Also,
did
I
run out
found a
of room.
tactic card that kind of makes Toad obsolete. So meh.
Oh, okay. I mean, I do like Black Widow. I think Black Widow is actually a good 2-point slot for this because of her stealth
Mhm.
and
Also, the
her
only 2-point Avenger model.
yes. But I think that she's actually a good point because you do have, if you're going for objectives, you do have some pretty strong objective play here with Quicksilver and even doing Ant-Man or Wasp grabbing objectives. So you have that there. You don't really need a Toad. You don't really need a Koye because you're really not bodyguarding anything.
Yeah, like I could bring all the 2-point models and go out of necessarily dip outside of affiliation to go even wider. But I really I want to play test the crap out of this and come back with more opinions. Because so far, I actually kind of like the damage output this brings and not being sort of bespoke to 2-threat Wonderland.
It is insanely cohesive. I'm not 100% sure on the Iron Fist. I think that's
Yeah.
the one weak spot of this entire list, but it's so easy to just like, nope, pull him out and put in Domino or put in Valkyrie or heck, there's a billion 3 points that just don't fall in Avengers or Defenders.
So let's talk about tactics cards real quick.
Yep.
So, one of the big reasons to go for all Avengers, almost the only reason to go all Avengers, is the tactics card Avengers Assemble. 1 per Avenger gives you a short move for each person you paid. It's super simple. It's been around the game since the start. It's still an incredibly powerful tactic card
It's an amazing
that
tactic card.
really rewards you for having all Avengers. Just the ability to completely change the battlefield to your suit.
Yep.
Or even if all you did was spend it to have one person move short, it would still be cheaper and more efficient than almost any other movement tactic card in the game. But also it's a little criminal to do that. All right, med pack, standard. Healing damage is good, especially when you have lots of guys with 5, anywhere from 4 to 6 health. 3 damage is a big impact. All right, so this is going to be somewhat of a disadvantage. Oh, brace for impact I'll also bring up because, again, standard. From here, we have a lot of tactics cards based on which characters you brought. That was actually kind of a challenge. I have 7 more tactics cards I considered for this roster. Because you have a lot of iconic characters on the list, and they all come with tactic cards. All right, let's talk about Scarlet Witch, the Whims of Chaos. This lets you pay any amount of power by Scarlet Witch to heal 1 damage or status condition on that many allies within 3 of her, I believe.
Not bad.
The flip side is those allies then gain either Hex, Root, or Incinerate, your choice. So it is a little mixed, but I like the combination of more healing for a wide spread, especially just being able to heal status conditions on that many people. Like if your opponent is counting on a specific status condition like Poison with the new Omega Red build,
Yep.
or if they're throwing judgments around that are really mitigating your energy gain, being able to clear that many status conditions for relatively cheap is powerful.
I don't know how I feel about this. I would probably want to do more generic tactic cards for that one.
Now, the other tactic card Scarlet Witch can take that I was super tempted by is No More Mutants. Scarlet Witch pays 3 to look at someone within 5 and say you didn't use that power. You still paid for it, but you didn't use it. It's the same as, I think it is almost the exact same text as Hush, or Shh, that whatever his face in Black Order has. It's just Scarlet Witch instead.
Ebony Maw.
Ebony Maw, thank you.
Yeah, I still would probably pop this out and put a generic in, but I can see why you put this in there. It's not a bad card.
Also, with Sam Wilson's ability to recover status conditions, when someone gets dazed, if it's really that much of a hindrance, you can clear it with that as well. This has the benefit of being on command, so you
Mhm.
don't have to wait for someone to get dazed or knocked out. In general, uh, yeah, Hex, for example, just takes away your crits. Not
Yeah.
great, but none of you are super dependent on crits, and they're random anyway.
Yep.
Root makes your powers cost one more, and Incinerate lowers your defense. None of these are incredibly good for you. So
Yeah.
it's just the balance of what do you need.
I don't know.
Uh,
Can I borrow that?
can I borrow that as a Quicksilver? Quicksilver pays 2 to steal an asset objective from someone he just punched in the face.
Yeah. No. No. Totally take that.
100%. It's like Enchantress is very good. Did you know Quicksilver is 1 cheaper and has her best ability once per game as a tactic card?
Yep. Yep. Nope. Totally do that.
Heroes for Hire is a lot of fun with Luke Cage and Iron Fist. Heroes for Hire, Luke Cage or Iron Fist is within, I believe, 3 of an ally, and then they pay 2. And then you could move Luke Cage or Iron Fist within 1 of the ally being attacked, and they get attacked instead. And then they throw the person that attacked them short.
Not bad, but if we're removing Iron Fist for to slot somebody else in, I would go ahead and definitely remove that card.
Maybe. Luke Cage can still do it all on his own. It's like Lethal Protector at that point, where Luke Cage teleports himself up to within 1 of someone within 3 to take a hit for them.
Yeah.
What's neat if you have both is the card's actually pretty clear that, for example, Iron Fist can pay 2, and then Luke Cage teleports and takes the hit. The person who pays is not the person who takes the hit.
Oh, that's not bad.
So
But
that's a decent combo effect.
if you're running a defenders list, absolutely.
So it's here. Chimichangas with Deadpool. It's honestly a fantastic buff for almost anyone.
It
On
is.
Deadpool especially, it's good. Because Deadpool is a little squishy on his front side. So once he flips to wounded, have him pop this. He's now got 6 health, good defenses,
Mhm.
and up to like 3. I think he has 3 regen at that point.
Yep.
And Deadpool just became your off tank while still generating extra power for his honestly extremely good spender. If you take Deadpool on the list, consider taking Chimichangas.
I actually think if you're taking Deadpool on the list, you're bringing Chimichangas.
Yeah.
Birds of Prey.
Birds of Prey, I had to bring Sam's tactic card. If there see someone across the table with flight that you would like Sam Wilson to take out, Sam pays 2, adds 3 extra dice, and they lose flight for a round.
And when we did talk about Sam Wilson, Captain America, we did start going, that's not useful. That's like, oh, wait. And we started listing off people in our head that we knew had flight, and we're like, oh, that becomes really friggin' useful.
It's super broad. It's relatively cheap for 3 dice. And Sam Spender, for example, gets a throw, which is and it has a solid base on it. So if you have a bunch of power on Sam, you could easily turn this into like a 9 dice attack that could throw them onto terrain or even behind terrain and then takes away flight and strands them.
All right. So we've seen your secures and extracts, and you've got swords established moon base on the moon's blue area. You've got Mayor Fisk,
Major Fisk.
Major
Ultra
Fisk,
Universe Army Fisk.
vows to find the missing witnesses. You have Terrigen cloud sweep over the city. You've got extracts is mutant extremists target U.S. senators. It's always a good one. Wakanda herbs, odd, but I can see why. Struggle for the cube continues, also odd, but I can see why. Now, I understand all of those, but we're going to talk about one in particular, and only one in particular. We're going to talk about Terrigen clouds sweep over a city, 20 points, 7 wide.
So I can take 7 models in a 20-point scenario. Is your opponent looking at your roster and thinking he's got a ton of 3 threats? I can play Hulk and smash 3 of them before he give him. Also, no, I think this list would shred Hulk.
I'm thinking about my
Or
I'm thinking about
I can
my
take
Cabal
Magneto
list.
and terrify him. And I'm like, I can have 4 people gang up on Magneto and kick him while he's down.
Yeah,
That's just a lot.
I'm thinking of like my Cabal list, my Criminal Syndicate list, and my Spire Foes list, and I'm like, I think I'm getting like 5 at most models on either of those lists. I'm like, you're outdoing me by like 3 models and
Now, it is risky. I won't lie to you and say it's not risky. As I look at my analysis on the assemble, I can take 7 models, but they're all 3 threat or less.
I still think that
So
you can
at that
swarm
point,
them.
like 20 threat is a lot. Your opponent's almost definitely got 1 or maybe even 2, or if they're crazy, more like 3 or more 5 and 6 threat models. And even if they ran all 4s, they would still have 5 models and be pound for pound as effective or better than you.
So
So
you are never
you need
going
to
to
be
have
real
first
comfortable.
turn. You might have first turn. You'll never have first turn again.
That's also true. So your squishy models are going to be at disadvantaged.
you though, at that point, at that number of models and
It's
that
very
number of
funny,
points,
and I want to play it.
I do want to see you play this, and I really want to play this against you. You don't care if somebody flips or even is destroyed. Like
Hmm.
at that number of
I, I,
models, you're just like,
I brought
oh
reserves.
yeah, oh you flipped Hawkeye. Oh no, what shall I ever
Yes,
Deadpool, go
do?
shoot
Hawkeye.
things.
Like you've got like a billion other things that are just like, hey, I'm gonna go kill some shit. So yeah, wow.
It would be real interesting. I do want to talk about the other crises because some of these are new.
Okay.
I don't know if we talked about them on the podcast. Sword establishes base, 14 points. If I take Widow, I can go 5 wide at 14 points.
Yep.
Also take that Wakanda. Sword is interesting because the person who controls the most consoles spread horizontally across the middle of the map scores the points.
Yep.
So, in general, for my crises, I wanted to try to do as much as I could to give me an advantage by diverting the resources in my opponent's attention. The more battles I can make them fight, that I think the more advantaged I am, and not letting them clump up in the middle and hammer me with their entire list.
So let me ask you this: if you are okay, so your opponent gets it and again gets the initial roll, and they choose gamma shelters, uh,
I'll be sad.
straight down the middle, just gamma shelter straight down the middle. You're gonna be sad, but then do you choose something that's going to overlap, or are you choosing something that's going to spread everything out also?
Spread it all out. You have the guys for it. They don't.
Yeah,
They have to commit down. You could still
Yeah.
run both,
I mean,
even if it's just to stop them. You're still running the scenarios.
yeah. If you
Like
have,
I feel for a dedicated secure scenario, Criminal Syndicate might be the only affiliation that can keep up with you when you decide that you want a point.
yeah,
Because I have lots of movement shenanigans. Because Sam can airlift anybody in the list. I've got Avengers Assemble. There's, I mean, granted, these are not necessarily as good as Shuri pushing everything off the point twice around, but I can collapse or spread back out as needed a little easier. I think than some lists. Ant-Man and Wasp have a lot of mobility built into them already. Quicksilver can be, I think, anywhere on the board, whatever he wants to be.
man, you pissed off Matt so much. He's just like, I'm done, gone.
It's fair.
So
And then I
you
took, again, playtest will need to be done, but I took Fisk and Terrigen Clouds for the same reason, is those scenarios involve secures that move.
Yep.
When you score points on that objective, it will move based on what your opponent does. So my thought is if my opponent is scoring, I can move the objectives to separate them out further and sort of divide the battlefield as I wish. Or if I feel confident that I have the numbers to take multiple at once, I can move them closer. But that gives me more options for dictating where my opponent has to send their forces, and maybe they just won't dedicate to everything, and I can just swing around the outside and grab more.
yeah. I think I
Also,
really
I think Quicksilver is terrifying at Wakandan herbs, so we're just going to go ahead and do that one.
oh no he definitely is. So I really like your list. The only person I'm kind of iffy about is Iron Fist. And Ant-Man Wasp combo. Those 2 slots in your list, I think you could probably change a few things, especially if you're never going to go for defenders. Or
I could.
you could, but the fact that you're outnumbering everyone at I'm trying to think of a cabal list, a wide cabal list, and I'm like, even a wide cabal list, it's really hard to get these numbers.
So numbers is not necessarily everything in this game. Quantity does not beat quality. Hulk sometimes gets the short end of the stick. If Hulk depends a lot on when he activates for how effective he's going to be. Like if he goes early and your opponent can take advantage of it, they can just pummel attacks into him and he won't get a chance to respond and he'll go down. But if he activates in like the middle of the round or when you have your small guys kind of clumped up, Hulk can daze or knock out 2 or 3 of them in a single activation.
I see you having problems with A-Force and
Yes,
Wakanda.
She-Hulk does not have those problems. She-Hulk is a big battering ram.
Yeah, A-Force and Wakanda, I see you having issues with.
Wakanda is similar, where they're relatively inexpensive. I think most of my 3s, though, have the benefit if I think they can take almost any other size threat 3 or threat 2 character in a straight fight without too much trouble.
I agree. I think you're going to have a problem with Killmonger. I think you've got too many people with low health, and he's just going to capitalize on that.
Yep. That's why he'd have to be a priority.
Yep. All right.
His defense is nothing special, so you're just going to have to concentrate fire on him.
I think you did a great job with the list. I really like it. I really want to see you play it on Thursday, and we'll make comments below about how it worked and how we're going to make some changes. And if you see any changes that you would make, if you think that Iron Fist is terrible and you wouldn't want to put him and you put somebody else in, tell us what 3-point characters or 2-point characters we should change around, and we'll see if we can test it out.
War Machine. We should put in War Machine.
All right.
We did talk about War Machine last week, and the reason he's not here is because he's unaffiliated. So
currently unaffiliated, yes.
Currently unaffiliated. He is not an Avenger, so he doesn't get Avengers Assemble. Is that a reason to cut him? No.
Yes.
But I could see swapping out Ant-Man or Wasp for War Machine if you really just need more physical damage spiking.
Yeah.
I think Deadpool probably has your high output melee damage. I would not want to take this list. Carnage would also potentially be a big issue for this list.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Anything that specifically tries to capitalize on mobility and high AoE damage could be threatening. You'll have to play around it.
All right. Thank you for watching. Once again,
You're welcome.
We would like to invite you guys to our 24-hour live stream on August 21st for Extra Life. We'll be playing a bunch of board games live on Twitch, and that will also be in the description down below. So once again, thank you for watching, and game off.
Bye.
Game off.